World are saying this morning. It's our international press review with Florence Villeminot. Hi there, Florence. And we're going to take a look at a story that's grabbing a lot of headlines in the international press now. This is the battle for who's going to become the president of the European Commission. And David Cameron is looking very much out on his own. He's been trying to block the appointment of Jean-Claude Juncker, but he's not been doing very well.
That's right. A lot of papers are saying that he's fighting a losing battle, and that's exactly what Le Monde says in an article today. In fact, yesterday, David Cameron was still trying, though. He warned European leaders at a summit in Brussels that the appointment of Jean-Claude Juncker to the top job in Brussels would drive Britain out of the EU. Now, David Cameron has been painting Juncker as a die-hard European federalist who's out of touch with the anti-European sentiment that we've been seeing a lot in Europe, and he's been trying to convince a lot of other leaders to follow his lead, but I've pulled out some cartoons that show that he's pretty much on his own. This is L'Opinion, a business paper. They're kind of, well, imitating the famous Beatles album cover, Abbey Road, but it's called Juncker Road. You can see David Cameron there saying, "Follow me," but nobody seems to be
going the other way.
Yeah, they're not paying attention to him there. The Independent and other pro-European papers in the UK are also critical of David Cameron. You can see him here defiantly shaking his fist at Europe, saying, "Very well then, I'll go on my own," but he is on his own and naked.
Yeah, a delightful image there. Thank you very much, Flo, from The Independent. So let's look at the paper's stateside. Papers there are focusing on a controversial Supreme Court ruling on abortion clinics.
That's right. This was a unanimous decision at the Supreme Court that ruled out buffer zones around abortion clinics in the state of Massachusetts. It ruled that these buffer zones were unconstitutional. Now, originally, these buffer zones were set up as a way to avoid the harassment or physical intimidation of women going to get an abortion, but the Supreme Court said that these zones that are on a public sidewalk were actually violating the First Amendment, so that's freedom of speech, of anti-abortion activists who couldn't give counseling to the women.
As they term it.
That's right, gentle counseling, as they term it, to these women going to get an abortion. This is the editorial in the New York Times today, which is very critical of this ruling by the Supreme Court that says that it doesn't acknowledge the real threat that women face when they try to exercise their constitutional right to have an abortion. Now, other papers are also critical of this as well. Slate says that the last thing that a woman going to get an abortion needs is to be screamed at by anti-abortion campaigners. And on top of that, there are other instances where these buffer zones exist, for instance, around political rallies, voting stations, and the Supreme Court. So Slate wonders, why does public safety come first in this case, but not for abortion clinics?
We'll see how they like it if they have their buffer zone taken away, won't we? Okay, let's move on. A lot of news, of course, about the World Cup continuing. We've had some startling results, some great wins. Algeria, they are very, very happy indeed that they have qualified for the knockout round for the first time ever.
That's right. First time in history. Lots of celebrating, including here in France.
Yeah.
Big Algerian
Car
community.
horns going off
Kept me
throughout
up
the
all
night.
night. This is the front page of L'Équipe. It's the French sports daily that talks about how magical Algeria was during that game. And I was taking a look at the Algerian press as well. They were very excited as well. Liberté, they had this piece today that all it said was, "On est qualifié, we are qualified," and that's all it said today.
I mean, you kind of think they'd won the World Cup already, to be honest, but great. I like to see those fans getting behind it. Now, let's talk about Belgium, which we don't very often. They're also going to the next round. Their team, they've come together, really the country which has been divided, they've come together to cheer on their team, the Red Devils.
That's right. This is a very interesting article in the Wall Street Journal today that focuses on the fact that Walloons, so the French-speaking Belgians, and the Flemings, the Flemish-speaking Belgians, who have been very divided recently, they're really coming around and together to support their team. Now, they talked to one woman, for instance, recently, who voted for a separation of the country. She wanted there to be two different countries in Belgium. But now she's waving the Belgian flag, so the black, yellow, and red flag. This article says that it's really done a good job to boost unity in Belgium, which was up until now very divided.
Well, there you go. Football for world peace. We've just got time now to look at the case of Uruguayan striker Luis Suarez. There's been a real, almost a campaign in some of the press, the British press, after he was bit another player, and he's now been found guilty of that by FIFA.
That's right. FIFA suspended him for 9 matches and banned him for 4 months of any kind of football activity. It's all over the South American press. This is Ovación, Uruguayan paper. It says bad news for Suarez, but check out this tourist in Brazil. She's having a great time next to this poster of Suarez. Now, La Voz, Spanish-speaking paper in the States, says this is not the first time that he's bitten another player. Third time, actually, he's been punished for it. He's a prisoner of his past. And let's just end with one little cartoon. And Expresso is a Portuguese business paper that talks about foot bullying. And you can see the new training methods for modern football. Well, you can't see it, but check it out. You can see him running after a bone.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much. Florence Villeminot there with the press review. Do stay tuned. The latest international news coming up very soon.
Down to Earth.
This week we're down to earth off the southern French coast on our way to join the team on board Tara. This year, for its 10th scientific expedition, the boat and its crew will use the Mediterranean as a full-time laboratory because as pristine as these waters might appear, below the surface things are not always as they seem.
Down to Earth on France 24 and France24.com.